Good evening, Facebook friends. It is Maundy Thursday. As we are in the midst of Holy Week and as we continue in our journey together, as we are sequestered at our homes and other places in the midst of this coronavirus pandemic, we're unable to gather together in the church to be able to celebrate this Holy Thursday. So I come to you this evening to first give greetings to our Jewish brothers and sisters and to say to them, Happy Passover, as they are in their time of the Passover celebrations and the retelling of the story of the Exodus and God's deliverance for the people out of Egypt and on the journey to the Promised Land. We continue that journey with them in supporting them as they celebrate. And we take time as Christians, the Christian community takes time to remember what took place on Holy Thursday, the night in which Jesus was celebrating the Passover and breaking bread together with his disciples. And Jesus was revealing a truth that was about to take place. As he broke the bread and shared it with his disciples, and as he shared of the cup in the midst of that meal and clued them in about what was to come. They didn't fully understand it, and sometimes we don't. But Jesus was moving us into the next age of the story of faith. Tonight, I will share with you a couple of scriptures so that we can hear the message that comes from the Holy Book, from Exodus and from the Gospel of John. The scriptures that are meant for this evening. Hear this word from Exodus. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, This month shall mark for you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year for you. Tell the whole congregation of Israel that on the 10th of this month they are to take lamb for each family, a lamb for each household. If a household is too small for a whole lamb, it shall join its closest neighbors in obtaining one. The lamb shall be divided in proportion to the number of people who eat it. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a year-old male. You may take it from the sheep or from the goats. You shall keep it until the 14th day of the month. Then the whole assembled congregation of Israel shall slaughter it at twilight. They shall take some of the blood, and put it on the 2 doorposts and the lintel of the houses in which they eat it. They shall eat the lamb the same night. They shall eat it roasted over the fire with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. Do not eat any of it raw or boiled in water, but roasted over the fire with its head, legs, and inner organs. You shall not let none of it remain until the morning. Anything that remains until the morning you shall burn. This is how you shall eat it. Your loins girded, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it hurriedly. It is the Passover of the Lord. For I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I will strike down every firstborn in the land of Egypt, both human beings and animals. On all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am the Lord. The blood shall be a sign for you on the house where you live. When I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague shall destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. This day shall be a day of remembrance for you. You shall celebrate it as a festival to the Lord. Throughout your generations, you shall observe it as a perpetual ordinance. So our brothers and sisters in the Jewish community are observing what God has called them to do as they celebrate this time of Passover. It was in the midst of the Passover in which Jesus came with his disciples into the city of Jerusalem, and in the upper room they shared a meal. Hear these words from the Gospel of John. Now before the festival of the Passover, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The devil had already put it into place in the heart of Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray him. And during supper, Jesus knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going to God, got up from the table, took off his outer robe, and tied a towel around himself. He then poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel that had been tied around him. Jesus came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" And Jesus answered, "You do not know what I am doing, but later you will understand." Peter said to him, "You will never wash my feet," Jesus answered. "Unless I wash you, you have no share with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not my feet only, but my hands and my head." And Jesus said to him, "One who is bathed does not need to wash, except for the feet, but is entirely clean. And you are clean, though not all of you." For he knew who was to betray him. For this reason he said, "Not all of you are clean." After he had washed their feet, had put on his robe, and has returned to the table, he said to them, "Do you know what I have done for you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for that is what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example, that you should also do as I have done to you. Very truly I tell you, servants are not greater than their master, nor are messengers greater than the one who sent them. If you know these things, you are blessed if you do them. Now the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. If God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and will glorify him at once. Little children, I am with you only a little longer. You will look for me. And as I said to the Jews, so now I say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another, just as I have loved you. You also should love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. Friends, the story of the Jews with the Passover is a story of hope. It's a story of remembrance of that which has been. It's a story of deliverance for how God has revealed a truth and guided a people from oppression and set them on their way to liberation. It's a story of hope as we come to the table of the Passover meal, and it is a festival. We come to the table and we celebrate, we retell the story. Why is this night like no other? Why is this night different? Why are the things that we eat different? We learn the story of Elijah and how Elijah is called to prepare the way and to come before the Messiah. And we are reminded that if not this year, next year in Jerusalem, for the Messiah shall come in full glory. In the Christian community, we tell the story of the Last Supper and our belief that Jesus is the Messiah and that the Messiah has come and that the way has been paved for the kingdom. The Last Supper reminds us of what is to come. A dark Friday, a night on Thursday, a day on Friday of despair and sorrow. But just like the story of the Jews in the Passover, there is this hope and this anticipation next year in Jerusalem. For Christians, the story comes to Sunday, when we will find an empty tomb and we will be reminded that life eternal with God, conquers death. And so here we are in the midst of this storm of coronavirus, COVID-19, whatever you want to call it. In the midst of this storm, and we are reminded that light will come at the end of the tunnel. This Easter, most churches will be empty. And we will be at home. We will be receiving one another through cyberspace, through the internet, through Zoom, through YouTube, through Facebook, through the phone calls that come, whatever connection we make with one another. Easter is coming, whether there's a virus, a storm, whether it's hot and sunny in Florida or cold and snowy in Michigan. Easter is coming. And the Lord is revealing something new for you and for me, for all of us. For those who call themselves Christians or Jews, for Muslims, for Hindus, for non-believers. The day arrives. We believe as Christians that God can still speak to us, as do our Jewish brothers and sisters. This time is sacred. That's why we call it a Holy Week. Take time to reflect. How is God speaking to you? And as the Exodus story speaks about, put the blood over the doorstep, on the frame of the door, on the outside. How do you see your relationship with God and God protecting you? How is God speaking to you? And what does it mean to be in the realm of the Spirit and the love of God? Followers of Jesus, this gospel lesson gives us one of the most important pieces for us to walk in the journey of life. Love God. And just as God has loved you, and you love God, love one another. Imagine that Jesus has washed your feet this day. Whose feet do you need to go and wash? It's easy to wash the feet of the 11 disciples. But Jesus even washed Judas' feet. For us, we don't necessarily have an enemy that wants us dead, but we have a broken relationship with somebody. Imagine they are at your table. Could you wash their feet? Could you speak tenderly to them the blessings of God. In washing the feet, you may break the division. You may break the curse. In that humble embrace, you may open the door for somebody to rekindle their love with God and imagine a vision that is something new. Next year in Jerusalem. Shalom to you, and God bless.